Good evening. You're watching the main news on HKIBC. I'm Raymond Yeung. Here's a look at tonight's top stories. 6 core members of the 612 Humanitarian Relief Fund slapped with fines for violating the Societies Ordinance. Department of Justice voices out its concern about overseas legal representation for media tycoon Jimmy Lai. And COVID infections on the mainland reach another record high. Six core members of the 612 Humanitarian Relief Fund were found guilty of failing to register the organization. The group, which includes Catholic leader Cardinal Joseph Sen, were fined from $2,500 to $4,000. Katrina Lau reports.
Denise Ho, Margaret Ng, Sid Ho, Si Ching Wei, and Cardinal Joseph Zen arrived at West Kowloon Magistracy this morning ahead of the verdict. Along with scholar Hoi Po Kern, the 6 were earlier charged with failure to register the now defunct 612 Humanitarian Relief Fund and pleaded not guilty. According to prosecution, the fund violated the Societies Ordinance, which requires local organizations to register with the police commissioner or seek exemption within 1 month of its establishment. The group operated from June 2019 to October 2021 and served as a legal defense fund for arrested or injured protesters during the 2019 social unrest. Prosecution argued that the fund operated in an office which held press conferences and raised money and could not be classified as a charitable organization. Hence, a registration requirement is applicable to the group. Principal Magistrate Ada Yim sentenced Fund Secretary Si Ching Wei to a fine of $2,500, noting his shorter term of involvement with the group. The other 5 trustees were fined $4,000 each. As Yim said that it was clearly listed that organizations which fail to register within a month of establishment will be considered to have violated the law, and each of the trustees had the responsibility to prompt the registration.
This case is not just about the 6 of us or the 5 trustees, but it is the first time ever that anyone had to face a charge under Societies Ordinance for failing to register.
The 6 members will be facing more legal troubles as National Security Police are still investigating the group on alleged collusion with foreign forces. While no charges have been laid yet, their travel documents were confiscated following a court order in May. Katrina Lau, HKIBC.
New COVID cases dropped slightly from yesterday, but the number of infections remain high. 16 more COVID deaths were recorded. There were 8,873 cases, of which 562 were imported. 19 cases were found across 15 residential care homes for the elderly and disabled. Another 984 cases were reported among 605 schools, and 5 classes among 5 schools will be suspended for 1 week. The hospital authority has made an urgent appeal for a donor heart to save a baby girl. The 4-month-old girl was diagnosed with dilated cardiomyopathy about a month after birth. With this condition, the heart is unable to pump blood around the body properly. Doctors at the Hong Kong Children's Hospital said a heart transplant would be her last hope after multiple operations did not help. The family is looking for a donor that weighs between 4.5 and 13 kilograms, and a heart is only suitable if it is from a donor with brainstem death. The mother expressed that she's hoping for a miracle. The Legislative Council's Transport Panel reviewed an application by the Star Ferry Company for a fare increase. While several lawmakers voiced support for the operator, most did not favor doubling the fare. Macy Mock reports.
Legislative Council's panel on transport held discussions today on Star Ferry's proposal to double its fares, as the company has been recording losses since 2018. Deputy Secretary for Transport Amy Wong agreed with several lawmakers that a fare adjustment was needed, but a 100% raise was too much to ask for. Legislator Luk Chung-hong suggested Star Ferry should charge tourists more than local residents. But tourism sector lawmaker Ferry disagreed, saying the city should be tourist-friendly. In response, Star Ferry Company's General Manager David Chow said the suggestion will be studied, but there is an existing limitation. Lawmakers added simply raising fares was not a sustainable solution to solve Star Ferry's financial problem, and suggested boosting long-term revenue by revamping the Tsim Sha Tsui Pier as a tourist attraction, which could enhance store rents. The government will consult the Transport Advisory Committee on the matter. The panel also reviewed MTR's fare adjustment mechanism. The existing formula calculates the rail operator's profit from its transport business. But lawmakers want to change that and want the MTR Corporation to factor in the profits which the firm derives from its property business as well. They also discussed fare concession offered when there is a service disruption. Legislator Tony Tse said MTR should also offer concessions for other incidents, such as the escalator breakdown earlier this month. The government is set to complete the review on fare adjustment mechanism by the first quarter of next year. Macy Mock, HKIBC.
The Department of Justice is leaving no stone unturned in its pursuit to stop British lawyer Timothy Owen from representing media tycoon Jimmy Lai in his upcoming national security law case. Here's Macy Mock again.
UK barrister Timothy Owen, who specializes in criminal and human rights law, has represented defendants in Hong Kong before. The King's Counsel was set to defend Apple Daily founder Jimmy Lai in a national security law case. However, the Department of Justice is going all out to overturn an earlier judgment by the Court of Appeal which allowed Owen to represent Lai. Appearing on behalf of the department at a hearing in the Court of Final Appeal today, Senior Counsel Rimsky-Yuen said that Lai is facing charges of conspiracy to collude with foreign forces, and the presence of an overseas defense lawyer could compromise national security. Chief Justice Andrew Cheung said the argument on whether overseas lawyers should not be allowed to participate in national security law cases was not brought up previously. Yuen also insisted that Owen has no professional knowledge of the city's national security law as it was implemented recently, and hence cannot contribute much as a defense counsel. But Lai's counsel, Robert Pang, said the Department of Justice did not point out whether the lower court had made an error in judgment by letting Owen represent Lai. Pang added Owen was experienced in matters of national security and freedom of speech, and could provide the court references on how other countries deal with similar legal issues. The ongoing saga has attracted pro-Beijing heavyweight Tam Yu-chung's attention. The city's sole delegate to China's top legislature agrees with the government, saying overseas lawyers should not participate in national security trials and that Beijing has the right to interpret and clarify the law relating to matters of national security. The Court of Final Appeal will make a decision on Monday, just 3 days before Lai's high-profile trial begins. Macy Mock, HKIBC.
China's daily COVID cases have surpassed 30,000 for the first time ever, with the southern city of Guangzhou remaining the most severe epicenter. The rising cases are challenging the country's COVID policy shift, as many local officials retreated to their usual tools to contain the outbreak, including lockdowns. Chloe Fong reports.
It seems to be a tough winter ahead for many residents on the mainland, as COVID infections broke through the 30,000 barrier for a second straight day, reaching another record high. Totally 32,695 infections were reported yesterday, with the southern metropolis of Guangzhou and the southwestern city of Chongqing each accounting for about 20%. Guangzhou has set up 19 makeshift hospitals capable of housing nearly 70,000 patients to tackle the infection head-on. A video that went viral on Twitter reportedly showed a Chongqing man confronting security guards in his community over COVID curbs, citing there's only one disease in the world, and that is being restricted and poor, and we account for both. He expressed anger over the skyrocketing prices of daily necessities. In Beijing, where daily cases exceeded 1,800, supermarket delivery apps are overwhelmed as residents across the Chaoyang district raced to purchase food after being told not to leave their homes unless necessary. Workers in parts of Beijing were also seen loudly drilling and building metal barricades to keep people in their apartment complexes, as people lined up outside some compounds to show their house codes before entering communities. Large parts of the city of Zhengzhou, home to Apple's largest iPhone manufacturing site, will be locked down for 5 days starting today. This comes as tensions surged between workers and security staff over COVID controls and pay disputes. Earlier in the month, the Communist Party announced the 20-point playbook in hope to reduce COVID disruptions, which cheered the markets. But the rising infections are challenging its COVID pivot as local officials struggle to contain the outbreak by resorting to their conventional methods. Chloe Feng, HKIBC.
Turning overseas, U.S. President Joe Biden hinted at tightening gun control in the coming weeks in response to a string of mass shootings. But the grim picture contrasted sharply with those of the annual Thanksgiving parade in New York City. It may be too early to bring out your down jackets in Hong Kong, but the countdown to Christmas has officially begun in the United States with the annual Thanksgiving Day Parade. Now in its 96th edition, the annual tradition sponsored by department store chain Macy's featured giant floats and balloons as they weave through the streets of Manhattan.
Oh my gosh, I've been waiting my whole life to come here. I've been watching it since I was a little baby girl. I will not cry. Anyway, another gift from my daughter to come here from Canada outside Toronto. We're so excited.
We love the Macy's Thanksgiving Day Parade, so much so that we have named our daughter Macy. She's 5 months old.
But the nation's hopes of a peaceful holiday meant to give thanks and seek healing were again shattered. Police in the city of Houston are investigating what led up to a double shooting, which left 2 youngsters dead. The 2 teenage boys aged 17 and 18 were shot as they were unloading Thanksgiving groceries from the car near their apartment complex. One victim's mother was lost for words.
He would have been 19. He would have been 19 December 8th. My baby was about to turn 19.
The latest violence came just 2 nights after 6 people were shot dead in a Walmart in Virginia state. In response, U.S. President Joe Biden said he would try to pass some form of gun control law before Republicans take control of the House of Representatives next month.
Can you do anything about gun laws during the lame duck, sir?
I'm going to try.
What will you try and do?
I'm going to try to get rid of assault weapons.
During the lame duck?
I'm going to do it whenever I got to make that assessment as I get in and start counting the votes.
The U.S. has seen more than 600 mass shootings for 3 straight years, according to the data from the Gun Violence Archive. Malaysia's newly appointed reformist Prime Minister Anwar Ibrahim has promised an all-inclusive leadership to tackle economic hardships.
This is a unity government. Our intention is to ensure that we have stability and focus on the economy. Every Malaysian, regardless of ethnicity, religious belief, or region, should be left to feel that they are ignored in any way. None should be marginalized under my administration.
Addressing a press briefing after he was sworn in, Anwar said uniting the nation was his first priority. He also maintained his stand that he would not take any salary to fulfill his obligation as the Prime Minister of the country, keeping his word as promised during his election campaign. For the second time this year, China's central bank has slashed its reserve requirement ratio in a bid to shore up the economy. The People's Bank of China announced that the ratio will be reduced by 25 basis points to an average of 7.8% on December the 5th. The ratio dictates the amount of cash that banks must hold in reserve. The latest reduction will release around 500 billion yuan into the market. It is expected to help banks follow through on an earlier directive to defer loan repayments from firms struggling with COVID lockdowns. The ratio was last cut in April, also by a quarter of a percentage point, while 250 basis point reductions last year. Hong Kong stocks closed the week in negative territory as the mainland's zero-COVID exit strategy remained uncertain after a record surge in daily infections. The Hang Seng Index closed 0.5% lower today to wrap up the week with an overall 2.3% loss. Local jeweler Chow Tai Fook lost its luster by 13% after its net profit for the first 6 months ending in September fell by nearly 7% year-on-year. Tencent dived 2.6%, followed by Alibaba, which ended 2.1% lower. Random lockdowns on the mainland hampered food delivery and saw Meituan losing 1.6%. But there was a sunny side to the cloudy outburst, as Country Garden ended up shining 9.5% brighter after mainland commercial banks extended credit lines to cash-strapped property firms. Now let's take a look at the markets. The Hang Seng ended today down by 87 points. To the top 10 active stocks, Tencent lost $7.40. The tracker fund down by 10 cents, but Country Garden picked up 27 cents. CG Services up by $1.58. China Mobile up 65 cents, while Ping An Insurance was up by $1.30. Over to the forex trading against the Hong Kong dollar. The euro's at 8.12, pound sterling at 9.44, while the Australian dollar at 5.26. Finally, in Europe, the London FTSE is currently up 20 points. Finally, the weather. Mainly cloudy with 1 or 2 rain patches tomorrow. Temperatures will range between 22 and 25 degrees. Conditions should improve early next week. Now let's take a look at the weather around the world. That's our main news for Friday night. Join us for more news at 11. I'm Raymond Yeung. Thanks for watching. Good night.